Welcome to the podcast. We've got myself, Alex, and my partner here, Matt, and we're going to be talking about 3D printing. This is the pilot episodes. We're still figuring stuff out, but figured we could start by just talking about our experience and kind of what we're both doing. So I'll start here. So my name's Alex. I've been 3D printing for a while now, I think 7 years. I started 3D printing at home. I was working as an engineer and I bought a 3D printer and started building it. We'll get into that in a second here because that's our first topic, our first 3D printer. But I currently run AG3D Printing, which is a 3D printing service, right? We have 3D printers, we can 3D print stuff for you, but we also focus on part success and like making 3D models. I've been 3D modeling for 15 years, started in plastic injection molding, moved to 3D printing, and I've been working in the industry for a while now. And then I've got the Part Detective, which is our like part focused service, but more importantly, it's storytelling. And we're kind of diving into the mysteries that we solve in every single 3D print. So we've got a blog at ag3d-printing.com you can check out. That's enough about me. Let's go over to Matt.
Matt, I ended up doing a internship at one of the big engineering places. So I actually was able to work when I was younger in some of the higher end industrial 3D printers. We're talking about like the EOS powder, some of the SLS. So I kind of got a taste for it there. Even in high school, I kind of like wanted to, it was gonna be one of my first purchases out of college was a cheap printer. And luckily, at the time they started to get cheaper and more affordable.
When was that? What year was that, Matt?
I think it was around, well, I did the internship around 2014. But
Oh,
then I think when
wow.
I got my first printer, it was around, well, I graduated college and it was probably 2018 or 17. I think we've been
Mhm.
doing 3D printing around the same amount of time, 7 or 8 years, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, so then, I was through buying one myself, I gained up the skills to actually get into the industry and get a job in the industry. So it was definitely like a, self-made and taught thing to be able to uh get in the industry and have enough knowledge to be able to explain, almost like your part detective. I remember because we started, well, Alex started a little bit before me in the 3D printing world, but we were at the same company at one point.
hmm
For me to get in that company, it was a lot of almost what the part detective was. So it was a lot of, during the interview, they showed me a lot of parts and asked, what went wrong here? What would you do to fix this or fix
hmm
that? So it was almost the same thing. And, just from me printing at home, I was able to answer like all the questions from just my own hands-on experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say my first 3D printer was
Wait,
one of the
before
best
before you start, you got to tell us more about what
oh,
you're doing now. No, it's
oh
okay.
yeah,
It's
sorry,
okay.
sorry. Uh,
We'll get there.
yeah. So like Alex, I've been at a couple of 3D printing startups. And just this year, I've branched out to doing my own company full time, Niche 3D. So I've been running it for 2 years since now, but it's been mostly just consulting with other companies. So the whole idea of the company was being at these other companies, I saw how hard it was to sell printers, sell the technology, and get people to use it.
Mm,
So I really wanted to get into how do I get more companies and people to use either the printers or use 3D printed objects. So I found some companies that needed parts, and I did a lot of product development and designed the parts and mass manufactured the parts all within my condo. So that's, over the 2 years, I've gotten, a handful of clients that I can now run it full time, get more clients, work on selling eventually my own products and some materials and other things. So that's kind of the goal in my head right now, and focus on applications and making products and usable parts for people. Get more people to use the technology.
yeah. Yeah. We connected, at that company we were working at the same time, in the middle of the pandemic.
Yeah.
We felt like we connected at the same level. There's like this. You'd think it would be very common, but in the 3D printing industry, it's actually very uncommon that people actually use a 3D printer on a regular basis. And I think we found ourselves as like every place that I've worked at, or you talk to enough people, there is this group of people that 3D print at home, they 3D print during their work hours, off their work hours, um, and are just gluttons for punishment. But we love it, and it's to the point where, we want to do it in our own way. But it seems like the buy your printer, learn 3D printing, it was such a I look back on it 7, 8 years ago, and I would not be where I am with my skill set or as providing value in this industry, whether it's working for a
Oh yeah.
company or working for myself without that. It's really
Well, like I was about to say, I think buying my first 3D printer was the
mm,
biggest investment I've made in myself.
yeah,
It's got me to learn the skills and it's got me to where I am now within my career. And this is kind of, almost a dream job to be where I am right now.
yeah, absolutely. So let's go right into it then. What was your first 3D printer?
It was a Prusa MK, I think MK2S.
Okay.
So I think just like you, is when I bought that wasn't assembled. So then, I think it took, I ended up video recording everything, but it was way too long. It was like, I think 14 to 18 hours of building.
Wow. Wow.
Uh, do you remember how long it took you to build yours?
So my
What
first
was it first?
Yeah, my first 3D printer was the Rigidbot Big, which I don't think a lot of
Oh,
people
really?
know. Yeah, that was my first 3D printer. So that was
That's a different one.
it is different. That was a Kickstarter project
hmm
and it was larger than anything else in
No,
the
back then that was a huge one.
yeah, yeah, it was big, and I still think that like bed. So basically, a lot of the Prusa is a square. It was a 250 by 250 roughly
256 by 256 by
millimeters.
256. Yeah.
Um, but like basically that bed was like a big rectangle,
Yeah.
So you had the bed that would move back and forth, and then you had the XY system or the X system
X.
that
Yeah.
moved. Which you don't see that a ton anymore, especially since it was a cube and two Z axes instead of the kind of. I guess it's more like it's similar to Prusa.
Yeah. Bed slinger style.
Yeah, bed slinger. Yeah, that was a lot of fun because so I had worked in injection molding when I got that printer, and for me, was working on like a research and development project where I had to learn 3D printing. In that case, it was like metal. In that case, but I just worked with a bunch of tool makers who knew G code and M code.
Yeah.
So I like saw what was possible. And I remember thinking when I first started that job, like I want to get to a point where like I can walk into a shop and like know what a machine is when I'm looking at it.
hmm
So like buying the 3D printer was like, hey, I'm gonna do this. And I don't remember the price, but the Rigibot Big was probably anywhere from 600 to like 800 bucks
Yeah. That's what
pre.
mine was about too.
Yeah. So, and that was a kit. So I had to put it together and assemble it. The project started off really good. It was a good project. The person running it did their best with it, but there were supply chain issues, and it was my first foray into like how a 3D printer company can fail. And they had
Yeah.
resourced the big problem with that printer was that the power supply that they had sourced was from China, and the quality that they were getting was so bad. Some people had fires, and just the what they had done to solder that power pack was just not good. And that printer still sits in my basement waiting for a new power supply. But I learned everything that I needed to. I learned slicers, I learned how to do stuff, and then I ended up getting an XYZ DaVinci Pro 3-in-1
Oh yeah.
which
Yeah. I
is
remember those.
a lot of words, but that's what I launched AG3D with because the Rigidbot just wasn't reliable enough, and I don't think I think at that time I'm not sure if the Prusa Mark II, I think the Mark I was still rolling around
Oh really?
at that time, so or I just didn't know about the Mark II, but eventually I got
Yeah.
the Mark II, but yeah, the first was the Rigidbot Big, yeah,
That's crazy. And then
yeah.
I can't believe you started your business with the uh, Da Vinci printer.
I started that business and I was even playing around with like custom G code manipulations to do like multicolor. So I was doing multicolor
Oh,
back
really?
in 2016. Yeah, my first project, which still gets hits on the website, was a Pokemon chessboard.
Oh yeah, yeah. You showed me that.
Yeah, so I made a pause on the G code. I manually swapped the filament and then just let it print. Um, so that to me was like, that was mind blowing to think that like
Oh yeah, back then.
back then, like before bamboo and all these other multicolor, the MMU from Prusa.
Well, even
Um,
even Prusa, I think on the MK2S or even the three, they in the slicer that you add pauses to change colors. So
yes,
you were manually going to the G
I was
code and
going into the
adding it.
file, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
which is a great learning experience.
Oh,
But
100%. I
yeah,
think I think everyone should, at least that's, doing it more recreationally, should learn some G code and edit some G code. A lot
yeah,
of powerful things you can do with editing the G code. A lot of
yeah,
things you can also do wrong, but
yeah. You can really break something.
you can
Yeah.
really break something. But
Uh, one thought of like the first 3D printer was like, w what are some like big lessons that you took away from that first one?
I, I'm not sure. It was, I got pretty good with it. So I was, printing my own things. I printed like a Iron Man helmet, and
Nice.
that took back then, right? That felt like it took forever. And then, put them together because there's a lot of pieces, and then, sanding it down to actually get a really good finish took forever. So it's like, when you're post-processing stuff later on, that's when you're like, oh, I should, there's like so many things I should change in the slicer to produce a better part. So I have less post-processing and less work I have to
Mhm.
do it on afterwards. But then it was also like, at the time, Craigslist was big.
Mm,
So I'd actually found a 3D printing gig on Craigslist.
wow.
So I was printing just the area around no, around Central Park, around Fenway Park for a guy. So he needed like 200 of them. And,
Wow.
I realized just simple jobs like that. Because then when I got that job, either before or after, I purchased, I think, another Prusa MK2S. And just to keep up with that, and I mean, that job paid, just one job of only like maybe 150 to 200 parts, paid for more than both printers.
Mm,
So it was like, you know, if you find jobs, the return you get on the printer is like super quick.
yeah.
So then it's like, oh yeah, you can start business and actually make some money doing this quite easily. And,
Hmm.
I feel like a lot of the industrial printers or even industrial machines that other people use to either manufacture parts or make prototypes are just so expensive, and
Yeah.
it takes forever to hit the return on the machine.
Mm,
While, some of these consumer level printers, you can get the return on the machine in just, or two machines, or a couple, several machines in just one decent sized job.
yeah.
So then, then that's when you start collecting more 3D printers, and, you know, uh, you get the you get the what's it called? The sting for it there, and you just collect more, and you start, once 'cause the second one I started buying, even the second one I bought was from like Craigslist or some used ones.
Mm,
So back then, a lot of people didn't know how to print.
yeah.
So they were having simple problems, or they'd say their printer was broken, and you could easily go pick up some really good printers for cheap if you knew how
Hmm.
to fix the printer or use it when other people were just having simple user mistakes. So
Yeah.
it was like a really good time to get actually really, really solid machines for cheap if you knew what you were doing.
Yeah. It was a untapped potential for a lot of people. That's like around the era of like the MakerBot when that was at its peak and everyone bought, that was like the big thing people bought for like their kids or for their
Yeah.
schools was the MakerBot, and so many of them ended up just gathering dust. And I mean there's still, I
I mean,
think the
still tons of
bamboo,
printers like that.
yeah, still plenty of them, but I think the bamboo's like the first one that is probably not gathering as much dust as any other consumer 3D
Yeah,
printer.
yeah. For people that aren't experts
Right,
printing it,
right.
they end up, not using it a couple times and either putting it in the basement or trying to sell it. I think
Yeah.
it's so simple for people to use that they're actually utilizing it and actually, using it maybe every
Hmm.
month or whatever. So,
Yeah. And the amount of free models that are out there now is
oh yeah,
really like there was a lot 2018, 2019, and now it's like especially with all the multicolor stuff, there's like a Thingiverse was like brand new back then. Now printables seems to be one of the top ones.
yeah, yeah. Back then, it
Um,
almost felt like you need to be able to model a little bit. Now
yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
unless you need something really, really specific, it might already be out there, or there's just enough of other stuff out there to make and utilize the printers.
No, it's true. It's true. Yeah, I think for my lesson for my first printer was I had gone the Kickstarter route, so I didn't have like a customer support to go through. There was no like, oh, this broke, we'll cover it. It was you're basically on your
Yeah,
own. It was just scrolling forums trying to figure out what someone else might have actually documented what they did. So then I went with a company like XYZ Printing
Mhm.
because it was a company that was a little bit more, it was a well-established company.
Very well established at
Um,
the time. Yeah.
yeah, and like the printer ran well. And this is the 3D hubs era. So I
Mhm.
don't most people who 3D print now probably have no idea about 3D hubs, but it was basically a marketplace that people with 3D printers could print a part, send it in, send a picture in so that you got like qualified, like, oh, you could print this part. Then you could get jobs from people. And this was like it's kind of like the Etsy for people who wanted to 3D print anything. They could just be like,
Yeah.
hey, I.
Proto Labs does this now. I think can't
Oh,
remember if
really?
Proto Labs bought them, but
Interesting.
there's like three different Proto Lab sections right now. But one of them is exactly this. You get pre-qualified, and then you send it out, and they pick someone, not random, but you
Right.
know, you end up paying cheaper, but you run a little bit of a risk. 'Cause they're not printing it in-house. They're having someone else print it, like 3D
Hmm.
Hubs was.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was a big, especially when I started taking on jobs, it's a big learning experience of what it means to have like a more reliable printer. And once the DaVinci started getting used after a little bit, I just started to realize that it had limitations. So I then moved into the open source world with like Prusa,
Yeah,
mainly because like all the videos that I was watching to learn how to customize my own G code and all this stuff, most of those people were using Prusa. So
yeah.
it was like all the education
That's where the
documentation.
big community started, was with the
Yes.
Prusas.
Yeah. Yeah. And now there's just so many people online who make videos about what they do. There's Stefan, there's Tom, there's 3D printing nerd, there's Joel, there's so many people. Um,
Yeah,
Andrew Sink is another one. Like there's just so many people out there that I've gotten to meet over the years, which has been kind of cool.
same here.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, nerding out on some YouTuber that, it's someone from the outside, be like, who is that? But, it's like, this is the guy.
tight community, very tight community.
Yes, yes. And that's the interesting thing. And I think something we talked about when we worked together, how small this industry is, not even just like you bought a printer at home, but working in the 3D printing industry. You're just gonna, if you work in it long enough, you're gonna meet enough people that you'll work at another job with. That's happened with us.
Yeah, for sure.
And just making connections, and then someone you knew works somewhere else and it's time to leave, and you reach out and boom, you've got a job and some people. So it's definitely really unique in that way. But the open source thing made a huge difference. Once that became a thing, people started making more hardware, so things like heaters and nozzles and blocks and all those things were just easier to get and they were cheaper.
Well, even just having like the open source on the Prusa,
Mm,
there's tons and tons of parts online that you can just download and print out, help modify the printer and let
yes,
you
the
install new
tuning.
hardware and stuff and help tune it. And
Hmm.
it was, it felt like half the time you were just printing stuff in your printer back then.
It's true. Yeah. No, it's very different times in today's world. But yeah, that was the first printer. Kind of a disaster for me, but a great learning experience. Yeah.
Well, it
Now
was worth it then.
it was worth it. To your point, like the money that I put in to invest in myself, to learn something, to have something was huge. And I think back, like it started with I was working at an injection molding company, and I worked with a guy who was very close to retirement called Ed. And Ed was an injection molding technician. So he would run these machines and keep them going and qualify them because those are the big presses. They're making millions of parts. I learned so much from him, but like he at home had a barn where he had a bunch of these injection molding machines that he owned
Oh,
that are in the
really?
barn, and he had jobs, and he would just like when he's at
That's
work,
amazing.
yeah, like he'd have a bucket underneath, and it would just keep running jobs, and his wife would come in every few hours and empty the box and replace it, and he would tell me, and I this it's in my brain, and it's what keeps driving me. Is like he would say, every time that thing opens, it's money,
Yeah,
money,
yeah.
money, and that like blew me away. It was the first time I understood manufacturing, and that was when I was like, well, if I got a 3D printer like that, I can't buy an injection molding press right now, but I could buy like I think the I was using one for my R&D that was like very low end, but
Mhm.
cost $85,000, you
Yeah.
know?
And
Like that was a
just
small
the tooling for the molds is crazy
exactly.
expensive.
Yeah. And so like that's the big I think the big thing between like manufacturing volumes in 3D printing versus manufacturing volumes in injection molding is just the upfront cost of everything.
Well, the fact that like we can print production level and end use products at home is just crazy. Like
Yeah.
you can back then, you know, you had to either have a machine shop or somehow have access to injection molder or something.
Hmm.
But like now we're just at home inventing, making stuff, and it's like, you know, out of plastic. It's crazy. It's just
It
what it
is.
enables us to do now is so crazy.
It is. It really is. And it's like I was saying, it's come a long way. And sometimes when you're in the thick of it, it can feel like it's kind of like run out, like it's drawn itself out, like you can get stuck in this being too close to the fire, if you will,
Yeah,
where you're
yeah,
like, oh man, everyone's thought of this. But every time I feel that, there's always someone new that I meet that's never even heard of 3D printing or seen a 3D printer.
yeah,
So there's just so much ample stuff out there. And as people that are trying to like build their own businesses here, that's a reminder to keep every day of like, nope, there's always new opportunity out there. I
yeah.
just
I
have to
mean,
find it.
people also don't understand like the parts and technology that can be used right now. So like sometimes I'll
Mm,
do like a craft fair just for fun.
yeah.
You know, I'll sell some stuff, but then I'll have another table of just like crazy examples of parts that I've printed. So, you know, I'll have some metal
Mm,
parts or some super soft parts or some full color parts, and people are always like, this was printed. Like people don't understand. You know, they right now we're in the age of, you know, people might know the simple FDM printers and seen some of the parts that come off of there, but then some of the more industrial printers or some of the newer materials and stuff, people
mm.
just like their minds are still being blown because they didn't know something like that exists.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned this at the beginning, but like the application of 3D printing, like it seems like at least the era that we're entering now, it's less about the flashiness or the newest tool, even though there's plenty of people selling new printers.
Yeah.
It is about the part at the end of the day.
How are
When
you
I
going to
worked,
use it? What are you going to make?
yeah, yeah. And like in when I worked in the industry as an application engineer, it was about the benchmark is what we called it. But it was basically it was this person wants to spend, you know, what is it, 6 to 7 figures on an industrial
Yeah.
3D printer. Well, let's prove out the ROI case. Let's make a benchmark part that's similar to something that you would make, or maybe is like fits something that's a problem that if you had this part, you could save, thousands, millions of dollars. And so that was the job of the application engineer was go in there, figure out what part they need, and if they have a part, analyze it to figure out how is it going to work for this process. And today that seems to be where the value is for most people. And I think it's always been the case. I just think it's more evident since we're looking for
Yeah.
it.
Well, I think still a lot of people don't understand. Like, you know, people think a 3D printer can just print anything, right?
Yeah.
So then they don't see that there's a process and skills to, you know, get what you actually need out of the part.
Yeah.
So, like you said, there's a process that we go through to figure out, you know, the best way to print it, the best materials, orientation. whatever, so the customer actually gets the part that they
Hmm.
need and it functions like it should. So it's not some, magic box that just spits out a part. There's still a lot of process and thought behind how we're manufacturing, how we're printing it, how we're even designing it. Designing it's a big
Yeah.
thing right now, design for additive manufacturing.
Yeah, totally. And I think tying it kind of all together here, if you really want to like accelerate your understanding of 3D printing, if you're like brand new to 3D printing and you just found this and you're like, wow, this seems kind of cool, or you're trying to get into the 3D printing industry or start a 3D printing company, like running a 3D printer, using a 3D printer is the best way to
Yeah.
understand like where the value is for a 3D printer.
And then, figure out your application. Do you have a cool hobby that you can make some stuff for that's,
Hmm.
very specific to that hobby? It's cool once you get it, but then you just gotta find the applications that you can make some awesome stuff for.
Yeah, I know I'm on a string of home improvement stuff, so just stuff around the house. I built a spice rack the other day for my area,
Yeah.
it's not something that was like a big box store buy, like there was nothing for that. And like when you think about 3D printing for yourself, whether you're a company or just at home, when it's for you and you're not charging somebody else to make it, the cost savings are
Oh yeah.
wild.
I mean,
Wild.
when I moved into this condo, I'd bought the 3D printer before, maybe a half a year before I moved in. So
Mm.
then when I didn't have anything here, I'm like, why would I leave the house? I can just like
Yeah,
print the stuff I need for around the house. Like, oh, like I need a holder for something or brackets. Like just tossed on the printer and
that's it.
it cost me what, a couple bucks or pennies for something.
Hmm. No,
It's an amazing tool for around the house stuff.
it really is. And like one of the missions when I started AG3D was to help bring us closer in whatever way possible to a reality where 3D printers are as common in the home as they are with like your 2D paper printer.
Yeah,
Um,
that was one of the thoughts I had too early on.
yeah. Yeah, and I think we're lurching towards that future, but there's a lot of things that,
Yeah,
need to happen. But if we get there, it could look something like, everyone has a printer in their home like you do a paper printer, but you're not buying stuff from Amazon anymore. You're buying the supplies and the designs
digital
from
catalog.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah. And so basically, like you're taking out the middleman of the product and you're sourcing the material or, you just buy it and it's there. And then obviously there would be an advantage like if you could design or if you could make your own material,
modify.
then
Yeah,
whatever increase in cost for all those things that happens, you could offset it and that could be a crazy future that we live in. Kind of like the replicator in Star Trek, you know?
yeah. I mean, it it affects so much stuff because moving goods, less warehouse space,
Hmm.
it's greener. So it's if you could, even move like to 10% or maybe 5% of the products are just being made in people's homes, it would greatly affect tons of things.
Yeah. Yeah, no transportation of all of those things just to make a part.
Especially if
It's all.
it's something stupid simple and even
Yeah.
replacement parts. Companies
Yes.
charge exorbitant amounts of money for replacement parts. But I mean, a lot of those stuff you can maybe just print at home.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, I think we've we've covered it pretty thoroughly for the first episode here. So any other thoughts you have on your first 3D printer?
No, I still have mine.
That's awesome.
And I'm not using it. It's not worth repairing it at this point.
Yeah,
It's 'cause using it for so much, the wires on the bed will like loosen in different points, and then you get
hmm
short circuits. So I think at the point I'd have to replace the motherboard on it,
It's a lot
which
of
just
work.
isn't worth
Yeah,
replacing at this point.
totally. So okay, so last thing. What is the total number of 3D printers that you have
Oh God.
currently?
Uh, Without counting, I think it's about 16.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see. I'm close, but I think you've got me there. I've got one, two, three, four, five, and then four resin printers. So nine. Yeah, I've
Yeah,
got nine printers. No, 10. Sorry, I got another one the other day.
you got me. I don't have any. I don't have any. I sold all my resin printers.
Yeah, and that's a whole other thing we could definitely get into in the future. But yeah, tell everybody where they can reach out to you if they
Oh,
want to learn what you're doing or if they're looking to jump in and do some business with you.
yeah. You can find me on niche3d.io. We're also on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn, Matthew Guy.
Awesome. Yeah, and you can check me out at ag3d-printing.com and AG3D Printing on Instagram, AG3D Printing Lab on TikTok. And then we've got a YouTube channel, AG3D Printing. And then you can check me out on LinkedIn, Alex G. Orphanos. And yeah, that's it. Cool. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody.
Thank
This is the
you.
pilot episode. I don't even think we have a name yet, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But thanks for joining us. We will keep bringing you more 3D printing content. And if you guys have anything that you want us to talk about or dive into, I mean, we already have a huge list of things that we're going to talk about, but we definitely want to hear from you and what you'd like to have us talk about or have people on. So let us know.
Even printing problems, we can do a little bit of
Yes,
part detective on here or just some analysis of different things.
absolutely. Yeah, we will have no problem going into the nitty gritty if you want us to. So just let us know. Cool. Until then, have a good one. Stay
Thank you
curious,
guys.
and we'll see you on the next one.
Keep printing.
Keep printing. Do it.